because they know we are investors too, and we do different things in the industry. They keep coming back to us.
Funny story is that's how Felix and I started. He had a multi-service in the Bronx, and this sort of diverged into a lot of things, but real estate being one of them.
If you could guarantee that somebody go door knock 10 houses and get a listing, then everybody would do it. But it's a numbers game. Sometimes you have to knock 100 doors before you get one.
Live from New York. Welcome to the Selling Empire Podcast. Your source for the latest real estate tips, tricks, and insights from the top producers in the industry. Whether you are new to real estate or a seasoned agent, don't miss your chance to learn from guests who have broken the mold and achieved massive success. Get ready to level up your game. Let's get started.
And we're recording. Awesome.
All right.
So, Gil, thanks for being here, man.
Thanks for having me.
We've been chasing you for what feels like forever now. I think we were trying to.
He's a hard man to track down.
I know, he's busy. He was partying it up at Triple Play last time we tried.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what threw everything off was Triple Play.
Yeah.
But it was a good time for sure.
Yeah,
we
and
took too long to decide whether or not we were going to go. We ended up not going.
yeah, but hey, next year. But yeah, man, thanks for making the time today. Really excited to have this conversation and dive a little bit into who you are and sort of your story in real estate. But again, we know you, Felix knows you. For those listening or watching online, who the heck are you and why are you here?
Well, Gilberto Flores, I've been in real estate for 20 years. This is all pretty much I've done. I do a little investing, but I've been doing real estate forever.
Yeah, so you mean you've been an agent since high school, college? Like how do you get started in the business?
So I started at 19. Basically, I was going to college and I got my brother, right? So my brother had a multi-service. It all started with him. He said, they were doing translations, some tax returns and kind of stuff like that. And he hired a real estate broker because he wanted to offer us, the real estate side. So immediately he said, get your real estate license. And then he said, find out what you need to do to become the broker, because I'm hiring this guy, I'm paying him $500 a week just to kind of be the broker of record. And if you become if you can get licensed to become the broker, then I'll be happy to pay you the $500 a week. And there was already like a handful of agents. He's like, so he got me motivated. So he's like, I'm going to give you an override offer every agent. And at the time I started off at 85% commission. So it was like a great split, override, plus whatever I made on my commissions and the weekly. So that's exactly what I did. My first year, I went in, you could pretty much say full time, and met the minimum requirements, which at the time it was 1 year in business, 12 houses sold. So I went from the first year, I did about 20 deals, I believe, more or less about 20 deals. So I hit the amount of houses that required to get my license. And then I had a year. And the second that I was eligible, he's like, take the test. And I took the exam and I passed it, thank God. And that's how my career really started. And I started in a management role immediately without having the experience. So it's kind of crazy.
No, so I think that there's a lot to unpack there. But I want to just quickly touch on, you said your brother was running a multi-service. Funny story is that's how Felix and I started. He had a multi-service in the Bronx, and this sort of diverged into a lot of things, but real estate being one of them. But so tell me a little bit more about that. He had a multi-service and he hired a broker to sort of open up a brokerage of his own. And He said, "Hey, why pay this guy? When I can pay family." Is that sort of how it was?
Yeah, pretty much is exactly what he was thinking because he was in business for a while. The thing is that a lot of he had a large clientele, and with the taxes and the translations, so we had the foot traffic, and at the time, business was different, right? So that's how I started doing a lot of my leads in the beginning came from the office. It would just be someone walking in, they just did their tax returns, and the person preparing the taxes would say this is an ideal person candidate to buy a house. Then I would meet with them, explain to them the process. We'll just, sit them down with a mortgage person, get them pre-approved. So the reason why I was able to have success from the beginning and sell a lot of houses was because I didn't have to worry about hunting for the business. And it was also in 2002. So the people were just pretty much coming into the office, and it was more of saying, hey, why rent when you can own and you have the income, and then we ran their credit and take it from there with them.
And that's a pretty interesting story. So you were pretty much using that business, which was, from what I can hear, going well. And because it's a multi-service, you were leveraging that clientele already into the real estate side. So that's how you got your 20 deals, which 20 deals for year one as a brand new agent, not knowing what you're doing. That's a pretty big deal. Yeah.
Yeah. That's why, I knew that I was going to college to try to figure out what I wanted to do, but I knew that I wanted to be my own business owner. And once I got into real estate, and we're 1099, we're basically in business for ourselves. I was like, I think I found what I'm going to do with my life,
No, for sure. And help us walk us through a little further into that journey. So we're in 2002. You've done 20 deals year one. You're on your way to become a broker that following year. How does your business progress and grow from there? And if you want, you were headed into some bad times in terms of 08's around the corner. So you've lived through that. Obviously, you've made it to the other side. Walk us through that.
Yeah, so we went on an amazing run, right, from 2002 even until 2006. That's when things started turning. So I got into it in June 2002. And then in August of 2006, I actually, by then, so the office was going well, but I wanted more because basically no one really trained me. I never really got any support. And I really never even knew what other companies had to offer because I only really worked from my brother's independent company. And then I told them, hey, listen, I like to kind of look into a different model, like to grow and expand, because I saw it even back then, right? Even as being a mom and pop, and especially since I wasn't at other brands like most people have been at Century 21 or Coldwell Bank, and at least they know that structure and they know what they have to offer. I had no idea. But I said, in order to continue growing the office, I think that, I started looking into different brands, and I said, you want to maybe do something together. But the thing was, he wasn't really affiliated with real estate because he didn't have his license, right? And he said, you know what, do your thing, right? Like, go on and see what offices you want to work with. That's not really my thing. We had like a great run, and he was happy to see me grow and want to go out on my own, right? So then in 2006, I bought into an exit franchise, and I was turning 23 when I bought my first franchise. So I remember Hector Castillo saying, you're by far the youngest franchisee, not just in New York, but in the whole corporation, actually.
Yes. So walk us through that.
And how was tell us a little bit about that exit experience.
Yeah. So then I was with Exit in total for 15 years. To go through the whole story, right? Because I've been through all the markets, right? Ups and downs. But when I signed my agreement to buy and exit, it was at the August 31st. I still remember that date in 2006. And then Hector said, hey, like, go find an office space and let me know. We'll approve the location. I ran into like a couple nightmare landlords where I wasted time. We had agreed, and then they would send me a lease, and it was totally different than what we had agreed to. So long story short, like, I didn't really open up a place until June of 2007. And by then the market had changed. Like it had gone very south very quickly. It had become a very short sale heavy, which I didn't have the experience doing, but I had the network of people that I had sold houses that were now in these kind of situations. And I remember taking a lot of listings. Like the most listings I probably ever had at any given time was 2007, 2008. Like as an office, I probably myself had like 30 listings, but they were all short sales and all families. Like I remember this one family that was 4 sisters. Literally they all said, after here, you're going to go see my other sister and my other. We all want to list our houses. We all want to do a short sale. Wow. And at the time I was excited without realizing how things were going to play out, because what ended up happening was that all these people, they had heard, or somebody had told them, if you list a house, you buy time. And when it came time to actually, well, there was also like a little transition with the banks where they weren't quite ready to negotiate, right? People, they just had bought the house for 500, whatever it was at the time. Let's just call it 500,000. People were offering good offers at the time, like 4.25, 450. They would say, no way, you're crazy. Like, we don't want to take a loss, right? Then little by little, more and more and more people would default, right? And what I started seeing is that everybody, it was like a new experience for everybody, right? Even as an agent, as a seller, yes, like now,
times to navigate, let alone whether you had experience or not. It was a brand new market at the time, right?
Yeah. So like now, if the market was to really take a turn for the worse and its short sales become a thing, now I know how to address it, because I wasted a lot of time with a lot of people that didn't really want to sell, and they just wanted to buy time.
Yeah. So before we get into the story of the charge, because I do want to get into that and then how you were, again, with no experience, managed to get across during those times, because again, hard times. But you hit on something a few minutes ago in terms of you started to manage your brokerage. You went into exit and grew that, all without having any mentorship. It was just you figuring it out. How did you get, for lack of a better word, the guts to do that? Who gave you the right to go out and figure things out by yourself? Because we all hear the stories. You have to get a mentor. You have to join a big brand from the very beginning to know what you're doing. Like, what made you succeed? And can you tell us a little bit about your production levels between 02 to 06 when you went into exit?
Well, you know what? I mean, more or less, I was consistently always like around that 20, like, every year would fluctuate a little bit, but between 20 and 30 deals. My best year, I might have done it like 35 deals, but the prices kind of kept going up. The reason why I did it is because I think it was the next step for me. And I also wanted to become better myself. And as the market was changing, and since I didn't have the training and nobody really taught me, I figured that if I joined a brand, they would walk me through everything I needed to learn how to better operate a business, right? So I went to the Exit International Convention for 5 years straight. I kept on going, but I didn't miss any events, any training that they had. I flew all over the country to attend the conventions. I would hop on calls. locally, whatever events we had, I would attend. So, but so that really helped, and that's why I wanted to join a brand. In terms of where did I get the guts, um, just I always, I gotta give some credit to my brother. Going back to him, I saw him have a lot of success, and so I'm one of four siblings, and I'm the youngest. So my next sibling is 10 years apart. So we
Uh-huh.
have a big gap,
Yeah.
and then the next one is 11 and 13. So
So you just wanted to you wanted to get out of his under his wing, right? You wanted to be your own man. You wanted to no longer not obviously you he gave you a lot, right? And you were obviously grateful for that. And but you just wanted to take your own step out on your own, which we all little brothers understand. Some of
Yeah.
younger, well, I used to be the
Yeah, but
youngest until my sister came along, but
yeah, but just to touch on that though, I don't think it's just that. Yes, none of us want to be the younger brother and somebody's out of shadow. But just to make this, really actionable for anybody that's sort of in a similar state is that, from what I hear, it's not just that, it's you sought out training, you sought out opportunity wherever you could and took action, right? You said you were flying around, learning about just different things and how to run a business, how to be a better broker and all of that. And, yes, by virtue of it being in your family, you surround yourself with individuals that are performing at a higher level. But I think anybody can do that, not just internally in their own families, but by working with others in their network, other agents, other brokers, surrounding themselves, yourself and your example, with high performing individuals gives you those guts to go out there, right? It gives you the mentality that yes, this is possible because hey, look, somebody else can do it, and I'm pretty sure I'm just as smart, if not smarter, than this individual. So um, I think just taking action seems to be what I think your biggest, I guess, superpower in this case, in terms of you took actions to make it happen.
yeah, for sure.
yeah. I mean, for sure. I did get drive from them because like my brothers were always involved in a lot of different things in the community. And again, like you grow up looking up to them, right? So you see them doing well, buying a house, having his own business, having a nice car, and then you're like, he could do it, I could do it, I guess, was my mentality. And I did to a certain extent wanted to do something on my own because I did start at his office and they were kind of spoon feeding me the business because that's the way it was before. It was the foot traffic. People now don't come into your office at all before. So to a certain extent, like people would like, I just wanted to know that if I did it, I could do it on my own as well. But in terms of joining the franchise, it was because I know I needed the training to continue to excel.
Yeah. And in terms of, again, you mentioned that you went from having leads walk into your office through your brother's business. Now you're taking a step out and really branching out on your own. How did you continue to generate business, and how did you make that happen for 13 years with Exit?
Once I went on my own, then I started because I started doing a lot of door knocking. So I would attribute a lot of my success to door knocking. I would specifically go after expired listings, and I took on the role of showing my agents how to do it, like hands-on approach. I always feel I still believe in that to this day that if you can show someone that it's real, that you can go to an expired listing with them, go knock the door, walk out of there with an appointment, go on that listing appointment, get it. I documented a few of those examples for the team where I would say, listen, here it is. When I printed the expire, this is what I would say. This is the appointment. And also the thing that's forgotten is I remember this one example that I used all the time was like, I stalked this house. Like I went there like 8 times. Twice I ran into the person coming home like pulling up to their driveway. And that seller actually said, listen, I admire your commitment, your follow-up, and when I'm ready to sell, I'm going to give you a call. And they did. And they gave me an opportunity to present. And the crazy thing was that I listed the house, was an expired. It was like listed at $379 at the time, relisted it at $350, got a full price offer at $350, 5% double deal. And I remember just like telling everybody, I think it's like 17,500, right? Like I still remember these things, and I'm like, that's how it took off. And so I did a lot of expiring and, door knocking, and I did some calling, but in person was always my thing.
Awesome. So you mentioned expires. Were you actually driving up to the expire listings and knocking on the door? Is that what you were doing?
Yeah,
No, he said
exactly.
stalking, not driving, stalking.
Yeah. I feel like, to get good at it, you, because I always tell people, right? You didn't go door knocking if you didn't make any contacts. Because if you go door knocking, supposedly, and you just leave 10 business cards, but you didn't speak to anybody, those business cards are going to fly off the door. By the time they come home, they might just grab it from if you stick it in between the door, bring it in, throw it out. So you have no shot. So I would consider door knocking and contacts only when I really spoke to people in person. And back then there wasn't actually, like those, like now you could buy everybody's numbers. And there was kind of like Red X, but like the numbers weren't as accurate as they are now. So I would take that opportunity to meet them. And I would say, hey, let me have your phone number so we could stay in touch and continue kind of calling them. But people blow you off over the phone. So in person, it's a little
harder too.
Yeah. No, and I think that's a great strategy that, can even be deployed today. And I would challenge anybody to actually go out and do it. A lot of agents spend a lot of time buying all these lists of expires or other such lists. Spend days on things like Mojo Dialer, calling hundreds of numbers per day to talk to one person, versus the stalking effect, that we'll call it, the Gilberto, of actually walking up to an expired and knocking on the door. Talk about targeted door knocking. Like that's very powerful, I think. If somebody were to knock on my door versus calling me, more than likely I'm going to open. Somebody calls me these days, I just ignore it. So
someone knocks your door a couple times, and always, like I would always be nice anyways, and kind of wave at them with a smile, like, hey, it's me again. How's it going?
Not threatening over here.
So it works. It works. And you're right. It works even now. I mean, I did some of that this year. I need to kind of get back into it. But I did it again, going back now we'll get into that later, but showing, agents and my team now how to go about doing it.
It's one of those sayings that we have right now is we got to go back to basics, back to what used to work, because now, with all the unknowns, we have to kind of go back to what we know works. For us, our big thing was always open houses. I mean, I have similar stories from you, double siding something. When my first open house that I did intentionally, because I attended for other agents and just never really got into anything. But the first one I did that was intentional, we had a plan in place, ended up selling the house at $650. And there was another instance that, and these are stories that we tell our agents too, like, hey, this works. This is why you need to do it. Just like you're saying that you're telling your agents on what to do and the steps to do. When it comes to the door knocking, we're doing the same thing for us in the open houses. The last one that I did, I was at one of our listings. They ended up not buying that listing, but ended up instead buying one that was twice as much. It was over $1 million because they walked into my open house, and then we went out the next day to see others. So, there's plenty of those stories out there. You just got to get out there, have your game plan on and execute, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's that nothing works immediately right away. If it was that easy, right, then everybody would do it. If you could guarantee that somebody go door knock 10 houses and get a listing, then everybody would do it. But it's a numbers game. Sometimes you have to knock 100 doors before you get one. But then it took you 100 to get that one, and then the next 10 you might get two. Like that's what I would always tell people, right? And same thing goes, you were saying with the open houses. I'm also getting back in the rhythm of doing more open houses. I actually just did an open house this weekend, which I normally don't do, for a builder that he's a builder and he owns, so he has access to, but he has his own MLS, right? So he lists his houses, and MLS, no, normally he would sell them through MLS, but now things kind of slowing down. And because I'm looking to kind of keep the agents and the team busy, I said, listen, if you have a couple houses that are vacant, because they're easy to show, and we could just kind of pick a time in, Saturday or Sunday, a couple hours. I did one, and about 15 buyers stopped by, a couple good leads. One person we're going on a CMA presentation tomorrow. So
That's awesome.
they work.
Yeah, it definitely does.
And I think the common factor behind all of these, because again, these are all of the basics that I think all offices, all brokers should be teaching their agents, is that get away from being behind your screen, your phones, and just be out there in the market where your buyers are going to be, whether it's open houses where they're walking to you, or door knocking where you're walking to them. The fact that they're seeing you, they're seeing the hustle, they're seeing that follow up, that dedication. I heard, or I've read, there's a stat that most buyers or sellers go with the first person that they meet, not the first person that calls them or texts them or sends them a fancy email. It's the first person that they actually see and sit down with. So if you can be that person, then your odds of actually succeeding just skyrocket from there.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, no. So in terms of just what's been working, you're taking a lot of action, but what has been working for you lately? What would you say sort of your superpower is, in terms of, if you could only do this one thing, you'll keep on doing it because it just works? Like, what's been your one thing this year or going into next year?
Because I've been doing it for a while, right? So I would say what keeps me busy is the relationships I establish specifically with investors. So if you think about it, right, every buyer and seller sells, people say every 5-7 years, right? Active investors are buying houses, maybe once a month. Some guys that so one of the investors that kind of kept me at flow, because in 20 years I never taken on a job, right? Only done real estate. So that kind of changes your mindset too, because you have to sell houses. There's no other way about it, right? But picking up this investor really gave me that base. Let's call it like a base salary, right? That I knew I had in my best year. I did like 18 deals with this one guy, so I had like a great year with him. I had a couple good year runs where I was like his go-to guy. Then properties became a little tougher to find, and the business model kind of changed too, right? Because before he would, any house he bought through anybody, he would just say, "Hey, I got us a house, it's going to be your listing," and then it started becoming
whatever agent brings in the deal. That's
I got to give this listing back, back to the agent.
Yeah.
And then my business started slowing down with him, and he would say, "Listen, I'll be more than happy to keep giving you listings if you have stuff for me to buy." And then it slowed things down, because there's just so many houses that I could find them, So, but I would say for a lot of agents, sometimes they oversee building a relationship with a builder long term that continue generating more business,
Yeah, and I think to that point, and Felix, I'll let you speak to this, but it's not just builders, but it's who do you know is going to be actively looking for properties for real estate in the market? and being top of mind to them. Felix, maybe you can speak to Agustin, one of our or one of your latest clients.
You want to work with, definitely matters. And he just ended up leasing a new office space, and on top of buying a couple other properties, and he's now looking for something else. So he's starting to be an investor versus being a flipper or whatever the case may be. But we create a good relationship in that first transaction, and he just keeps following up with me, picking my brain on different things. And I just looked. We were doing our year-end kind of financials, and we're like, "Holy crap! This one guy alone brought me over 100K in GCI." I was just like, one guy.
Yeah.
I met him this year, and we've done probably 4 deals together, but one of them was a pretty big one, and he's already looking for the next one. So definitely worth developing those relationships. There were many times that I'm like, I want to strangle him, but you kind of stuck through it, and obviously it's been paying off. So definitely build relationships. You never know who a buyer now can become an investor later, because that's the way we've done a few things actually. Because Carlina bought her first house with me, and then she bought another investment property. Same thing with Cindy, and I could name a few others that, because they know we are investors too, and we do different things in the industry, they keep coming back to us, asking different questions, picking our brain about investing. And then they're like, you know what? I'm ready. Let's get me an investment.
Yeah. Well, one thing piggybacking on that is that I always tell the agents is that you should always say, if you know anybody looking to buy and sell, let me know. And you don't realize it, like that. I was talking to somebody the other day, right? And they said they just got into real estate. And they said, when I wasn't in real estate, I didn't think that, like she actually has a brother in real estate, to say, hey, you should use my brother. People don't necessarily think to go out of their way to recommend you unless you ask for the order. You say, if you know anybody that's looking to buy or sell, please let me know. And then, you can always kind of show them something of appreciation, take them out to dinner. But I also met a few people in my career that they enjoy helping you. And, at the end of the day, also, they're doing a service to somebody else, they feel, because it's not easy to find a good real estate, attorney, a realtor, a mortgage person. So if they know somebody that had a good experience with, they would want to share it.
Yeah. No, and this whole thing about relationships is key, right? It's something that in the earlier years of having gotten our license, you always hear your network, your sphere, all these buzzwords, fancy things. I didn't think much of it, right? And honestly, disregarded it. But it hasn't really been until recent years that I've really understood the message behind it and tapped into it. And in one example, just because I've maintained a good relationship with this one attorney, as of 5 minutes ago, I've gotten an accepted offer, Felix, on 1.6, just because they
Very nice.
knew to come to
Awesome.
us. They knew to come to me, because, again, we always talk on a regular basis. And now we're doing a deal together, all because we've kept in touch. And like Felix was mentioning with his other clients, with Agustin, these are all people that just because they know you, because you keep in touch, because you build that strong relationship, they will continue to feed you business going forward. And to your point, Gilberto, asking for it is crucial, right? If there's one piece of advice that we've learned over the last few years, is always thank your clients for their support and always ask for business. Asking may seem like a big thing or a no-no in some cases, at least in some people's minds. But if you are building those relationships, if these are really your friends, if you will, if a friend came to me and asked for help, I'll gladly help them. We're asking them for help. They'll gladly help you if you treat them right.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely.
So now, having covered that, what's next for you? What are you working on now? What are you working on for 2023? I know we have a lot of great things happening with Rio, but what's happening with you? What do you have in your pipeline?
As I was thinking about next year, obviously, I joined Real almost in May. So I was looking, it says May is my anniversary, May 1st. I don't know if they just kind of rounded up, but I thought it was like the end of April, right? But I want to become an elite agent, right? But it's going to be like half of the year, it's going to be finishing. But at least I was thinking more saying like the second year at Real to become an elite agent. And I want to focus on building a team. Like so far, Aaron and I and Rebecca have about 16 agents that we have at the office. So my goal for next year is because I've been doing this for so long, now I want financial freedom, right? And that's one of the things that got me excited about Real is that I could do my own office, help support people, and then open up. They have 5 levels, right? So I want to get 25 people directly that I bring in, and so that could continue building itself for my future.
Yeah.
Awesome. And in terms of, hitting a lead, I'm sure with your numbers, you're bound to hit that. Having done, to some notes here, 18 to 20 deals on a consistent basis. I know 2023 is going to be a bit more challenging, but you've made it through '08. I'm sure you can make it through this. It won't be any harder. In fact, I think it'll be easier for those of us that are not scared to put in the work. I think I see this as an opportunity. This may even be a better year than the last couple of years for those willing to put in the work.
Yeah, well, I look at it from the point of view that I have more experience. I know more now. I learned from the lessons from last time around. And definitely also I feel like when we see kind of a tough market coming, a lot of people tend to kind of close up and become very conservative and just kind of want to weather the storm. And that's really when you should be doubling up, tripling up on whatever works for you and working harder, because that's really what it comes down to. When the market is doing well, business kind of flows a little bit easier. You don't have to.
We tend to get lazier because we're still getting deals, whether or not we put in a lot of work for it.
Exactly,
right?
And we could get more, but we're getting, so we're happy. That's like I find the constant struggle with real estate is breaking that barrier from I for the most part always close a good amount of business so I get comfortable, but I never broke that barrier of, let's say, closing 50, 100 deals like you see some agents do. And it's because sometimes you just gotta get comfortable, and then you rely on the referrals that you have. They keep coming in, but if you never stop grinding and doing everything that you had to do to get to that point, like we were saying, the door knocking and prospecting all the time, then you just let those referrals not be most of your business, but add to your business, then that's a game changer.
Yeah, I think that's a good segue to our Empire 4 questions. If you could start all over again, what would you do different?
So I would focus on, as a new agent, setting up systems, because, when I started, I used to just literally write down every buyer that I was working on a notepad, their name, their number, the basic criteria, and I would run with that, and that would work. But then you sell them a house, and like on my Zillow, right, there's only a record of the past 10 years of my sales. Before that, or the previous 10 years, I tried my best to put together that list, but it wasn't being saved by Zillow. And that's what I would say is that now we're in different times. Like if you're a new agent, there's other things that help you, but create your own CRM from the beginning. Like start working with one and create a good follow-up system, a way to stay in touch with
Yeah, I
people.
think we all tend to falter on that. I don't know that I have all the contacts for my first couple of years in business either.
Yeah. And no, I think, creating a process is something that's it's key for any business, right? You look at any other great companies, they have a process for everything. And real estate is a business in its own way. So yes, you do need a process if you want to be successful. Even though you didn't have a formal one, by virtue of what you described, you did have a process. Your process was to be relentless and to stalk people, which works great, right? And that's very actionable for anybody that's starting out. Is build a process, to not only get leads but to maintain them and service them, and follow up on everything.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I always kept it simple, but it worked because I would, let's say, if I had four buyers, they would be like on my desk. So the second I walked into the office, I would even put them, you know, I would even put them in my car. Like, so I just constantly thinking about those people that I was working with, and I showed them houses as often as possible until I
Yep.
sold them a house. Because I always been a firm believer that you got to strike while the iron is hot. And
Yeah, you got to
most
keep on
people
top
that I
of mind.
sell, yeah, most people that I sell houses to, it happens quick. The ones that it takes a while, that's kind of where I run the risk of them kind of getting lost and lack it, they get the deal could
Yeah.
fall through.
Yeah, and no, I think, the way I sort of think about leads and people in general in real estate, there's only two kinds of leads. Leads that are going to buy now, or leads that are going to buy later. But everybody needs at some point to have somewhere to live. And if you're just constantly talking to people, if they're ready to buy right now and then, they'll buy through you. But if you nurture those and just keep on following up with them, they'll buy through you eventually. And then just, moving on to our second question here. I mean, for agents who may be feeling stuck, especially now as we go into, a newer market here in 2023, what advice would you give them?
I would just say, right, like put together a plan. And so I work with this. I have a minimum daily goals, right? So at least I have to make 5 contacts. If I don't only speak to 5 different people, I don't consider it a good day. Or at least take 5 different actions. If that might be showing houses, going after a listing, following up with something to generate new business. The key thing also with that, I would say, is to keep a positive mindset, because you can't control what the market does. Prices go up or down, but you can control being positive and waking up and putting in the effort every day. Going back to like what I think I mentioned before, so sometimes agents get down on themselves and they just think that the market sucks. The market becomes, if you look at it from that point of view, you're not going to do much business. So just I always look at also the sales that are happening, and that gives me that reassurance, that confidence that deals are happening every day. Because if you go on MLS and you do like the last 30 days, and let's say in Nassau County, a couple hundred houses sold, you only need a couple of those.
You talked about you can't control the market, but you can control your actions too, right? So you were talking about the 5 different things that you would want to do on a daily basis in order to feel like you've accomplished something. So that's definitely something that I wanted to highlight there that you mentioned is you can't control the market, but you can control your positivity and you can control your actions that you do on a daily basis in order to generate new business.
Yeah, something that's got to be income producing, because, and actually I wanted to say that too, right? Is that in the times that we're in right now where social media is big, the new agents are forgetting that, social media wasn't big until a couple years ago, and there was people doing a lot of business, and now the new agents are coming in. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm a big fan of videos, YouTube, podcasts, and everything else, but it can't be the only thing that you do.
Yeah.
That's like a laid back approach until you start really killing it and you have a huge audience and your phone is ringing and people are reaching out to you, you have to take a more proactive approach.
Yeah, for sure. And, when we're thinking of sales, I always describe this as a big funnel, right? You have all these different things that you can do and you should be doing, and all these big goals that you want to achieve. And there's so much there that you cannot control that if you want to be successful, you really have to boil it down to, okay, what are the 1, 2, 3 activities that I can, act on a daily basis that'll get me there, right? It's that principle of taking a step at a time. Well, what is my next step? I want to get, from point A to point B, but what are all the individual steps in between those 2 points, and what are the daily actions that I can take that'll actually get me there? One of the things that we have done with our team that we're implementing is an app called Habit Share that I'm a big fan of, and we'll put that in the show notes, but Habit Share is excellent for that, and that you can describe and list out what are my daily activities, what are my goals, and it's as simple as, did I do it or not? Did I do my 5 phone calls for today? Did I have my 5 conversations? Did I follow up with my 5 leads? Whatever your money-making activities are, that you do them or not. And it's, a powerful thing just to look at that visually every day versus scrolling through, to your point, Gil, Instagram mindlessly, just looking at videos. Sure. Which we still do.
Just a little bit less. All right, so similar question, but a little different spin to it. For experienced agent that want to take their business to the next level, what advice would you give?
So an experienced agent, I would advise them to kind of double down on their sphere, like doing that more client appreciation nights, just trying to connect with them also on a one-on-one. So the client appreciation also, like, hey, let's go out to dinner, or at least just shoot them a text. We're in the holidays now. It's a great time to send them a, holiday card, Thanksgiving. So I send out like this calendar. I do Thanksgiving and I do like holiday cards. So that's like 3 touches. And then throughout the year, I'm just constantly texting, calling. A lot of times if I'm just in the car by myself, I'm thinking of who I haven't spoken to in a while and give them a call, or nowadays through social media, just kind of interacting with people that I see that I haven't spoken to in a while, that like my stuff, and kind of interact with them as well, back and forth.
Awesome. Yeah, and as a sphere, networking is paramount for getting that business to the next level. And then last question from us, Gil. I know you're a busy man, so want to release you back to the wild to do your thing. In terms of your last 20 years in business, which that's a long time. Congrats for making it through and being successful on the way. What resource would you say has brought you the most value in your career? Whether it's a book, a podcast, a mentor, what resource has brought you the most value?
I'm not sure on that one, But what I would say is that with the investing part of it, I like buying lists, right? So I go to the foreclosure auctions, and there's a list out here called Long Island Profiles. That's helped because it becomes a spin-off business. It helps me also, like I see what's coming up. Sometimes I go there and I see what they buy it for. And then a lot of times I look into wholesale it and just make a couple bucks extra, right? And then I could sell it to one of my investors, and then I could get the listing. So like foreclosures, I would say networking also with REO brokers, that a lot of times people, hate these REO brokers, but it's the approach, it's the way you present the offer, and setting up a relationship with them, because the most important thing to them is their asset manager, and they want the deal to close. If you could create a good track record with them, you could continue to get more repeat business from them.
Awesome. Go.
That's great. So where can our listeners learn more about you and connect?
So my Instagram is Gil Flores _sells, and my phone number is 516-840-1030. I would, yeah, reach out to me. Let's connect on Instagram. That's the best. I'm on Facebook and everything else, but from there we could connect, you know.
Awesome, Gil.
Any last comments here, Aneury or Gil?
No, Gil, really appreciate you stopping by. It's been an awesome conversation, man. Looking forward to.
Thank you for having me. Thanks for inviting me, because you know what, I don't do a lot of these, but it's putting ourselves out there, right? That's the key thing. And I think that people could get out of this podcast is that this is not something that, I'm not a big video guy. I'm more like, but I did it because I want to give back and I need to put myself out there.
Awesome.
I'm the same way. This is the only way I will be in front of the camera, because it's like having a conversation with somebody else instead of just feeling like I'm talking to just something.
Yeah, I gotta say, I mean, obviously I know you guys, but I felt very comfortable and, you know, it went well.
Awesome. Yeah, so.
Yeah, glad you could be here, and thanks again for everything, and we'll see you next time.
See you soon.
See you guys.
Right.
Thanks for listening to the Selling Empire Podcast. Want more of the best real estate tips, tricks, secrets, and insights to level up your game? Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss the next episode. While you're at it, help us spread the word by leaving a rating and review. And we will see you back here next time for the next episode of The Selling Empire.